Hi, fourth graders. Now that you guys have gotten a chance to review area, we are going to be finding the area of combined rectangles. Now, we worked a little bit on this last year, but now they're going to add more numbers to try to confuse us. But you guys are hard workers, and I know that you can do it. So when you have two shapes together, whether it's combined rectangles or a rectangle and a square, and you're trying to find the area, you are going to find the area of both rectangles. You're going to try to separate them and find the area of each one, and then add those together. So the formula for that is area 1 plus area 2 is going to be the area for both rectangles. So when you get a shape, you are going to divide it to figure out the area. Now, there are a few ways that you can divide. In this case, we have two ways that we could divide the rectangles up. One, we could put a line here to divide it. The other way we could do it is we could make our line here. Now, it's completely up to you. The only thing I recommend doing is when you are looking at these shapes is to try to look at the numbers and see which would be the easiest for you to solve. So I'm going to divide my area right here. I'm going to divide it to make two separate shapes. And now I have a square, and here I have a rectangle. Now, I can find the area of my square. I know the length and I know the width, so I can do area, remember, equals length times width. So the area of this square is 3 times 3, so this would be 9 inches squared. And the area here, I want to make sure I have the whole area covered. So that's this whole side and this whole side. So I just wanted to make sure because I don't want this 2 to trick me. That is talking about just this little piece right here. I want to make sure I have the area of this entire thing. So if I have 5 inches and 4 inches, I'm going to multiply them together because length times width is area. So 5 times 4 is 20. We're working in inches, and I'm finding the area, so it is squared because I multiplied. So now the area of the first square was 9 inches squared. The area of this rectangle was 20 inches squared. So that means that the area altogether is 29 inches squared. So this entire shape is 29 inches squared. Let's try another one. Same thing here. We can divide this to find the best method of solving this. For example, we could work on this. We could divide it here, or we could divide it here. It's completely up to you. No matter how you divide it, you're going to always have the same area. That doesn't change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it this way. So now I see here I have two separate rectangles. Now, remember I told you these numbers can trick you. So when you are trying to find the area, what I would do is this is very hard on e-learning. So if it helps you, what you can do is you can draw these diagrams and these pictures of the shapes and solve it that way. If you are a more hands-on learner, that will definitely help to draw it and then be able to divide it and solve. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover up this part here because I don't want that 9 to trick me when I'm solving. I'm trying to solve for this rectangle right here. I'm not trying to solve this part right here. So I'm going to completely ignore this 9. The 9 is important because that's how long the shape is over here. That's how long the side is. But I'm not talking about that right now. I'm not talking about this length because I didn't choose to solve the other side. So right now, I'm going to cover that up and I'm going to see what numbers I have. and I have 7 millimeters, and I have 4 millimeters. So 7 times 4 is 28 millimeters. That's what the unit we're working with, and it's squared because we're talking about area. Same thing now that we can figure out the second area of this second shape. Okay, so the 1 is talking about this little part right here. Okay, and the 9 we said was talking about this thing right here, and those are important. But we don't want to get distracted by those numbers because right now, I'm going to put my hand over this, we are just talking about this shape right here. So 8 times 5 is 40. We are once again talking about millimeters. And because it's area, it's going to be squared because we're multiplying those. So our first area is 28 millimeters squared, plus our second area is 40 millimeters squared, right, 28. So the whole area of this would be 68 millimeters squared. Now let's say that we did choose to divide it a different way. Let's pretend that I'm going to instead take this shape, divide it here. And remember, I told you you're going to get the same answer, but it's just going to be divided a little bit differently. So instead, this time, we're going to be looking at this shape right here. Cover it up. So here, our shape, let's see. I know that the length is 9. And if I'm covering this up, I see 2 different measurements here. I see 7 and 8. But that can't be right because I know that these sides are parallel and they have to be the same. So let me take a look real quick. Well, that makes sense. This here is 7 right here, and this whole thing is 8 because if we mark it here, if we end it here, this is 7 to this line, and then we know that if this is 1 millimeter here, then this is 1 millimeter here. So 7 plus 1 is 8 altogether. So that makes sense. So when you are trying to find the area of this shape right here, we don't want that 8 to distract us because that's not talking about this part. That accidentally gets in that other rectangle and we don't want to add that in. So we are talking about 9 millimeters times 7 millimeters. Now 9 times 7 we know is 63 millimeters. That would be the area of this rectangle. Remember, this is just because we're dividing it differently. This first way was absolutely perfect. This is just if people chose the other way to divide it. Now we know that the first area is 63 millimeters. We said that squared. Now we have to find the area of this rectangle. So this rectangle, we see the 2 different sides, the length and the width, is 1 millimeter and 5 millimeters. So 1 times 5 is 5 millimeters squared. So now we would add those 2 areas together. 63 millimeters and 5 millimeters squared. We add those together and we get 68 millimeters squared. So that showed you that you can divide them differently and still get the same answer because the area doesn't change. Now, if you do notice, when we first divided this area the first way, it was a little bit easier because we didn't have to do so many calculations trying to figure out not to get distracted by this. So try to find the easier way to find the area for you so that it's not confusing. Let's do one more. I hope that doesn't bother you, I'm sorry. What is the area of this figure? Well, let's divide it. Remember, you can choose how you want to divide it. You can go up and down, or you can go side to side. I'm going to go side to side. So we see we have a rectangle here. Well, yes. And we have a square here. So, easy peasy, I can find the area of my square. 4 times 4 is 16. We're talking about centimeters. And we're going to square it because it's area. Next, we are going to find the area of this of this rectangle. Now, just like I told you before, don't get distracted by this 9 centimeters here. 9 centimeters is the length of this whole thing. And we've already calculated for the 4 centimeters. We've already done this side. So we are going to be working with these numbers. This shows the length and the width of this rectangle. So 6 times 5 is 30. Working with centimeters once again, and it's squared because it's area. Now we're going to add those two areas together. 30 centimeters squared plus 16 centimeters squared is 46 centimeters squared. Good luck today when working on the area of combined rectangles. Please let me know if you need any help. Just remember, divide your combined rectangles or squares into 2 parts. Find the area of each and add them together. And don't get distracted by those numbers that you don't need. Have a great day. Bye.